All right, so I'm hanging out in Las Vegas. I ended up here at the same time with the Richard Kerr.
Just regular.
Just regular?
Just regular Richard Kerr.
Regular Richard Kerr. He's at the Bellagio. I'm at the Flamingo. He obviously is a high roller, but he's paying less money than me, which is why you should definitely follow him wherever he writes, which right now is TPG and what, at Kerr Points?
At Kerr Points, Instagram and Twitter.
I like it. So he's at Bellagio for $50 a night. I'm at Flamingo for twice that. And so we figured we'd get together and talk a little credit card stuff because right now there's a really awesome sign-up bonus for the Capital One Spark. Huge. And he informed me, which I didn't know, that apparently it can be tough for some people to get this card. I applied for it. I do have business expenses. It was very easy to get. The card is the sign-up bonus is advertised as $2,000 cash back, but you can actually turn that into lots and lots of miles, if you will. With their new transfer partners, that means you can transfer them to a bunch of airlines. Now, you do have to spend $50,000 over the course of 6 months.
But it's a business card.
It's a business card, so that's a little over $8,000 a month. Which
a lot of businesses do that.
Yeah, no, I mean it's if you have a business and you do it right, that's not a hard number to hit. So we're not going to dig too deeply into bonus categories for the card and stuff like that. What I really wanted to talk to Richard about, because he really does know the programs better than I do, is to talk through some of the transfer partners. So Capital One, up until recently, didn't have these sorts of transfer partners, and they jumped in a big way. Now, if you just like to travel in the U.S., this probably isn't your jam. If you like to travel internationally, I think that's where this card, the rubber really hits the road.
Yeah. It requires knowledge, though.
Yeah.
Like everything in the space. And it's also got a little bit of wacky 2 to 1.5
yeah.
transfer ratios. So it's not immediately apparent for those of us who are not math savants. I'm a dumb Georgia boy how many airline miles you actually have. But yeah, there's a lot of value here. And if they're giving you 200,000 miles, which turns into 150,000 airline miles.
Well, plus I guess most of the spending on the card earns 2 to 1 too. So that 50,000 points is probably going to earn you 75 to 100,000 points on its own. So just achieving the sign-up bonus, you could end up with 250,000 to 300,000 points. And so transferring to an airline somewhere in maybe like the 200,000 range, which, I mean, again, you probably know some of these programs better than I do, but when I think of, say, like an airline like Air Canada, and again, we know their program's changing, but I know if I dump those points in, that's probably 2 business class tickets to Europe or Asia.
Yeah, 55,000 each way, North America to Europe.
Yeah.
And you can avoid the fuel surcharges with a bunch of the programs on there. So it's 2 round trip business class tickets to Europe. It's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Yeah, and I think for folks who live in the U.S., I think they don't think about a program like Air Canada and Aeroplan, but they've got hubs on both the East Coast and the West Coast. So for somebody like me that lives in D.C., Toronto's an easy hub to hit. For you, I assume same. Atlanta, you can get up to Toronto pretty easily.
Yeah, did it this summer.
Yeah, that's right. You guys did. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then for folks who are on the West Coast, you've got the Vancouver hub.
Go to Asia.
Yeah, to go to Asia. So if you think about it, a lot of folks who live in secondary markets in the U.S. are connecting in Chicago or L.A. or San Francisco. It's not a big difference to connect in Toronto or Vancouver.
Now, I really am curious to see what happens with this program, but for now, get in while the getting's good. And if they're going to give you this many Spark miles, or even if you're a legacy venture holder and you're doing big spend, 2x on all that, I mean, it's just, if you can get approved for a card, it's not difficult to earn a lot of miles. My experience is that Capital One pulls from all 3 bureaus when you do an application with them.
Yep.
And if they see that you have a decent amount of credit already available with cards, they're not going to approve you. So, I've been trying for 3 years to try and get a new Capital One card, and I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's a bummer to me, which is why my interest in this, I've purposely avoided it because I'll get FOMO, and I want some venture miles, and it's just not in my near-term future.
Yeah, this is my first Cap One card since probably before they were Cap One, maybe like my college days. So that might have been why I got the easy approval.
18.
Yeah.
Was it after the Civil War?
It was 60 years ago, 70 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
Richard likes to think I'm older than I am, but I am pretty old. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. So if you had to pick other airlines, for me, when I look through the partners, the one that draws my attention is Air France KLM because I've used that program before. But as you look through the partners, what do you see as things that folks might find that are useful for these points?
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through here. I'm not like texting and ignoring you. I'm looking at the list because it is a rather eclectic mix.
It is, and it's not small. I mean, there's 2 pages worth of them on this TPG post that we're referring to, and I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16.
So here's where I think it's easier to start when you're doing these things is the programs you just need to ignore.
Right.
And we'll go back. So let's ignore the Fortune Wings Club. I've tried to find good information about that and looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
Not much there. Infinity Mileage Lands is actually could be a useful program, but you got to gnaw through your left arm 3 times in order to get something booked, and it's just not fun.
But they do have the Hello Kitty planes.
They do, but just use United Miles or Aeroplan and book that.
Yep.
And then Finnair Plus, good grief, they want all the miles if you want to book a partner or anything. Miglia with Alitalia can actually be useful if the airline will still exist in another year.
That's true. I've used them for short haul stuff like Rome to Catania and Sicily, places like that.
You can actually book Delta online. And there's
really online.
Yeah,
Wow.
you can book Delta online. So if you haven't played around with that award search engine, go play around with it a little bit. Make it work for you. And then Aeromexico Club Premier. There's not something. So the Around the World is kind of the current Easter egg with that. The Around the World chart's actually useful, but nobody can get it booked. It's published on their website. So forget Aeromexico, forget Miglia, essentially. Forget Finnair, let's forget Fortune Club. Everything else has a niche on that.
You can tell he's not Italian because we roll the letters. It's Miglia.
I'm American.
Like ricotta.
Americans don't do that. But let's look at it. So Avianca left miles, tons of use there. You flying domestically, even all kinds of great things. Avoiding some fuel surcharges on some long haul. Lots of great stuff there. Emirates Skyward. So I'm a big naysayer in this program, except for 2 things. One is sports tickets. So if you want to go European soccer matches, you want to go U.S. Open tennis.
U.S. Open, yeah.
You want to get a suite at the Dodgers game, like 12,000 miles. Like nothing. It's best kept secret that's out there. Even though I've written about it, people, don't pick it up. So
they don't like what he writes.
No, they do. It's just we write a lot. Cathay Pacific, while I've beaten this program up lately, if you want to book British Airways with half the fuel surcharges of anybody else, book it through Asia Miles. Don't know why, but they cut off half the fuel surcharges. So, not American, not Avios, use Cathay Pacific to make it happen. Etihad Guest, I've written about this. The partners out there are just outrageous. Anyway, it's like each one of these programs, you can Google it. You can say like Ultimate Guide to Etihad Guest and Partners, Ultimate Guide to Cathay Pacific. Tons of stuff out there. Basically, your venture miles are incredibly rewarding if you're willing to put the time in and do a little bit of effort on this, which is like the great equalizer amongst everything right now.
Yeah.
Is what effort are you willing to put in to figure out all the routing rules of Chris Flyer and what you can make that program do for you,
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I like about this. When I think about award charts going away in the domestic U.S. programs, that means that for folks that want to get more value out of stuff, they're going to have to hunt.
Yeah.
But because some of it's hidden, that means there's still something to find. And so, like, I think about, and this might not be for everyone, but I think of, Qantas restricting first class space on their own planes to essentially their own folks. And so, being able to transfer miles to Qantas and book that. We used, and I don't know what the rates would be for Qantas because we used Advantage miles, but we flew Sydney to Cairns to go to the Great Barrier Reef this year. And, I mean, they fly business class on Airbus wide bodies, and it was 10,000 Advantage miles one way.
Brand new A330-200 with the shoulder strap belt.
It's a beautiful product.
Flew that Sydney to Melbourne.
So if I could use Qantas miles for something like that, I think that there's a lot of value there. And I think Singapore, Chris Flyer is another one too. I think just the places that people don't necessarily, or airlines that people don't think about, because Singapore, because of their connectivity, you can get to a lot of other places besides Singapore if you're willing to jump.
Their website is just so slow, man. But they do show all the Star Alliance partners on there now, and you can get some pretty nifty routings. Back to Qantas, booking El Al at very reasonable rates in business
really?
class from the East Coast.
And they've got a great new business class product from what I've heard.
The Newark, fly to Newark and Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
The new Dreamliner business class is awesome. It's like 78,000 Qantas points.
We need to do that soon.
So, yeah, that would make it happen. What I really like in going back is you said, hey, they're getting rid of all the award charts so American, United, and Delta essentially don't have award charts anymore.
American still has one, but
No, they don't.
they say they do.
What's interesting is that it used to be if there's saver availability, then you can book it with a partner program.
Right.
Now, saver availability means like we're not really sure how much it's going to cost, and therefore we don't know when a partner program is going to be advantageous to book it or not.
Right.
But like we found with Virgin Atlantic miles and Delta, even when Delta apparently doesn't have saver availability, and they're charging 50,000 Sky Miles for a domestic flight, it's still 12,500 on Virgin Atlantic.
Yeah.
So when United goes through this change over the next year, and they're saying his last minute domestic flight is going to be 30,000 mileage plus miles have nothing to do with the program anymore.
Which is pretty much like every Orlando flight that I find from Dulles now.
Well, maybe then it's only going to be 12,000 life miles.
Yeah.
Through Avianca, and it's going to be interesting to see the patterns of when partner programs have access to saver availability and when they don't, and if we can make a logic out of that. Which is why you got to do your research now and become familiar with using Etihad guest miles to book American instead of American miles. I mean, like Etihad has not updated their American chart since the previous devaluation in 2016 of the American chart. They still charge what American charged back then. Yeah. So you can routinely book American flights for less Etihad miles than what American wants, unless they throw out these ridiculous web sales, which is awesome. Are you going to Australia?
I'm not. I didn't book it. I did this poll on my blog and on Twitter, and I was surprised because I wouldn't fly it in coach. I'm a wuss. But I was surprised that almost 40% of the people that responded to the poll said the same thing, that they wouldn't fly it in coach.
I'm going, man.
You did? You booked New Zealand or you booked Sydney?
Sydney, 6,000 miles.
Wow, that's incredible.
Dallas, LA, Sydney, and because of the American status I have, I immediately picked the main cabin extra.
Right.
For 6,000 miles, it'll be at least a good story, and I'll book business on the way back and make myself feel better. So
there you go.
For 6,000 miles and $5.60,
No, it was that's one of the best deals I've seen, and with the fact that it was a quote unquote web special on their website, I do wonder, as you say, like what falls in what bucket. So if we looked at that, I didn't at the time it was up, but I wonder if you could have found those flights on the partners, or if it was just something where AA dumped the inventory to their own frequent flyers, because it was just an incredible deal. But it was only around for 3-4 hours.
Yeah, I landed in Miami. I think I was in Miami and busted out laptop in the baggage claim area and booked it real quick. Thank you, Miami. Free Wi-Fi. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Or actually, no, I hotspotted off my phone to make that happen because the free Wi-Fi wouldn't happen.
So takeaways. First off, we'll start at the beginning and work our way back to the end and work our way back to the beginning. First and foremost, reasons to follow folks like Richard and myself are these deals pop up. You'll see us tweeting about them. You're never going to find that these deals stay around for a long time. So like Richard said, he got off the plane, he sat down on baggage claim, he booked the ticket, and if he hadn't,
it was gone.
You would have got it. So especially when you talk about things that touch the U.S., you've got 24 hours to cancel when you book something. So book now, ask questions later.
Yeah, every single time.
Every single time. The other thing I'd say is that as an overarching theme with Capital One now, it joins the ranks of cards that help diversify. If you've got a retirement plan, if you've got a 401k or something like that, you don't have it all in just one stock. And so the beautiful thing I think about these flexible currencies is now your Capital One points, you can transfer them to 15 or 16 different airlines. And yes, it takes some more work.
Yep.
But if you want to get to where you're going without spending a fortune, it might take a little work.
It's an exponential learning curve. Huge front load, and then just a little bit to maintain. So just convince yourself it's worth spending a week reading in trial and error, and then you can maintain it, and it'll click rather quickly. Yeah, and you don't have to learn all of these programs, to be clear. I think we've mentioned at least 5 or 6 where you can find a good amount of value redeeming points like this. So if you think that the Cap One card fits you from a business standpoint, if you think you can hit the spend, don't think about it in terms of cash back. Think about it in terms of a business class ticket for you and your loved one to Asia or Europe, South America.
Amen. We should go get some dinner.
I'm all about that because
You're running out of whiskey.
I'm running out of bourbon here.
Oh, is it bourbon?
Yeah,
it's bourbon. He went to go get ice for the bourbon, so we're gonna table it here. We're gonna leave the Bellagio and head out and grab some chow. Hopefully this video turns out to be something useful for you guys. We're certainly going to be doing more of this in the future, although I can't say I'm always going to be able to catch up with Mr. Georgia Boy here in random cities around the country.
We're going to give it our best go, though.
We are going to give it our best shot.
And hey, Bellagio for $50. These things happen.
Bellagio for $50, and I'm at the Flamingo for $100. But at least I got my resort fees waived. You got to pay resort fees.
That's what they think.
He's working hard to get it waived. All right, guys. Later. Dinner.